Hello and welcome back to Boots, Banter, and Beyond, the stories of Reverent Warriors, the show where stories about how humor and camaraderie have changed lives for the better. I'm your host, as always, Eric Schessel. Today in the show, we've got a double header for you. You don't even have to pay extra. First up, we've got local coordinator Dave Boston from IW San Jose. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today, Dave. How are you?
I am lovely in this beautiful rainy day in San Jose.
Is it rainy? I can't even tell.
Well, I'm not outside. I'm on my computer, so
Well, I'd appreciate you not being in the rain. We all know that electronics and water don't mix.
eh. Other than that,
We've Go ahead.
I was going to say I'm interrupting your show, but other than that, life is good out here.
No, absolutely. So other than rain, so what's like the temperature out there?
So we're hoping it warms up a little bit for the hike. Right outside, it's about 58 degrees, so almost 60. It's been
Okay.
sprinkling quite a bit. A week ago, we got up into 85. And then looking ahead for our hike coming up in a week and a half, it's looking like we're going to be in the low 70s. So from a hiking standpoint, that is perfect weather.
Absolutely. No, that sounds like it is going to be good weather for you guys. Before we dig into the meat of the episode, I have to take a moment and do an event promotion. It is the Irreverent Warriors and Grunt Style Foundation Veteran Wellness Retreat. Experience a retreat designed specifically for veterans seeking peace, understanding, and renewed purpose. This immersive program combines proven therapeutic techniques with innovative healing approaches, creating a unique space for personal transformation. Connect with fellow veterans while exploring various wellness modalities from mindful practices to experimental therapy. Our expert led sessions focus on building resilience, fostering meaningful connections, and developing sustainable mental health strategies. Join us for healing, growth, and empowerment. So, this event is taking place out in Indiana, May 16th, 18th, and tickets for the event are $55. If that price is too steep, they do offer a scholarship program that's available for you to apply for. So, head on over to irreverentwarriors.com or reach out to local coordinator Stacey Bain from IW Vincennes to find out more. That actually sounds like a lot of fun. Being
It
able to
does.
go hang out and kind of just experience a whole lot of different modalities of therapy. That sounds like a good experience.
No, I'd agree. Regardless of your service time, your post-service time, how you think about it, what you think about it now, as things pop back up in your memory, going with other veterans or doing something that potentially might take something subconsciously that's out there might be bugging you, or bring something to the service that you need to deal with it. So, everybody should
Yeah,
explore different approaches.
absolutely. Have you tried anything other than the hikes themselves? Have you done any other types of therapy?
I've went down over the years, different therapies just to see if I could kind of right myself. Over the years, like every veteran, I've had bouts with alcoholism that was just too much. Excessiveness is always a problem. Getting out of your 20s and your 30s made a big difference, and so some of it might be age. Some of it was dealing with, you know, things that I weren't talking enough with other veteran friends, how they deal with it, what they're dealing with it you know and regardless of what I found for me personally is I might not necessarily find that one mechanism that helps me deal with it, but I have found for somebody like me who's usually closed to a lot of things, just talking about it for me has been enough, regardless if the person on the other end wanted to hear it. So
Yeah.
any way to get that going for me is a start. The fact that you say it a lot, it's the same thing. If you identify you have a problem, regardless if you know the solution or the full scope of it, you've started down that path.
Right. Yeah. No, I've just been doing the standard what everybody thinks of therapy, just going in and talking one on one with a therapist. That's kind of what I've been doing for the last 2 years. Aside from being involved in IW and stuff like that, I've done a little bit of equine therapy and stuff like that. Dabbled a little bit and stuff like that. So I'm sure that experience in Indiana is going to be beneficial. When you offer a lot of different things, it's hard to take all that stuff in, and it can be overwhelming. But I mean, you never know until you try something. You don't. Standard
100%.
therapy may not. Standard therapy may not work. Equine therapy may not be your thing. Acupuncture therapy may not be your thing. what maybe cold plunges are, or vice versa. It could be anything. You never know until you give something a shot. You have to just take that step.
I'm not going to say physical pain is a solution, but I have found like physical activity while I'm thinking about it or complaining about it, doing with veterans either a grueling hike or an extra event or a cold plunge, believe it or not, is my way of getting it out. Because if I'm miserable, I feel like everybody else should be miserable, but I feel better afterwards without trying to bring somebody else down. So everybody's going to have a different way of getting there.
Yeah, and I mean, and you made a good point. Like going to the gym and abusing the hell out of myself, I feel better mentally afterwards, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, especially coming from the veteran side. We a lot of our bonding we've had over the years when we were in service. You remember the fun times going out, but you sure as heck have a fond memory for the miserable times where you were stuck out in the cold, out in the mud, digging a hole, carrying a bunch of stuff around. At the time they were friends, but they became very diehard brothers that you can speak to. You don't get those bonds anywhere else unless you do a shared almost misery experience that most civilians aren't willing to push themselves to do. I'm not saying all of them. They're not here to defend themselves, so I'm going to pick on them now.
You don't. I mean, I was Air Force, so I mean, I don't know what you're talking about digging holes. I was in the hotel back down in downtown or whatever.
Oh, okay. But for the Marine Corps, our hotel was the hole we dug. And so it was either a hole we dug that was filling back in with sand, or it was a hole we dug in the mud that was filling up with water. But the best part is you had to constantly dig it out and you were ever done. So my hotel experience is a little bit different than yours.
Well, truth be told, my AFSC or MOC or MOS for you guys was security forces. So I was military police. So I never stayed in a hotel like ever anywhere. I was always out in the when we were doing training, we were out in the field and stuff like that. Especially after 9/11, we did a lot more convoy ops and stuff like that. So I do empathize with the whole digging because we did plenty of that.
I'll give you a pass.
I'm no Marine. I'm not or I'm not an Army grunt or nothing like that. I'm not even gonna try to compare myself. I know damn well that I'm not on that same level.
And just so you're clear, the hatred that the Marine Corps gives to the Air Force is nothing more than jealousy, but we don't know how else to package it, so it comes in hatred.
And that's totally fine. I accept your hatred as jealousy. And now that you've
Yeah.
made it aware, I can just I'm gonna put, hey, well, Dave Boston's a Marine and he said that you guys are just jealous. And so
Yeah,
I'm just gonna throw you under the bus from now on.
right. But we like to lash out, so that's kind of how we are.
Yeah, totally. It's fine. So speaking of, before we get into all your Silkies hike, let's talk about a little more about your service. Obviously, you have already announced, you're a Marine. So tell us like what you did in the Marines, where you were, all that good stuff. Give us
Sure.
that deets.
Sure. I did 8 years in the Marine Corps digging holes all over the world. Um, that pretty much sums it up. No. So I did 8 years. I had an interesting service time, as people say, as I did 8 years. The first 4 years was almost to the dot pre 9/11, and then the second 4 years was post 9/11. And anybody that's in, I feel really old saying this, that long ago, um, that saw both sides of the world. There was a huge difference in how the military thinking, its budget, the events we were doing and prepping to do pre 9/11 and then post 9/11. So I always break it up because it's kind of an interesting story, at least for me. I had to live it. The first 4 years, Marine Corps, I was a machine gunner, 0331 infantry. Um, Joined in 97. Ended up with 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines out in 29 Stumps or 29 Palms, high desert. Did 3 deployments with them to Okinawa and South Korea and on ship and off ship, and then one in the middle of between those two to embassy response missions for Kenya after the bombings in 97, 98. We're out there for a while, Relief Fast Company. Um, Good times, plenty of deployments. Most of my time in the first 4 years was overseas, um, multiple countries, places. It was amazing. The craziest I got was in Kenya at night when the riots always happened. Everybody got a little out of hand, but we kept the Tempers Aid building secure and came back. And then I got out in July of '01 for my active duty first 4 years, and of course September 11th hit. But in the end of August, I joined a reserve unit, 2nd Battalion, 23rd Marines. Um, and then September 11th hit. That unit got activated, and besides one kind of check-in half weekend, my first real drill weekend was 3 years long. So September 11th hit. All of a sudden, I was reactivated at the end of '01, beginning of '02, and we built up with First Marines for the invasion. Um, and it was a pretty interesting event because 80-90% of that reserve unit, nobody had really been active duty before, so it was just a reserve unit. And I was able to call up a couple of my buddies that had got out the same time with me in 2-7 and said, hey, you want to drive out here? We'll crash at my apartment. We'll get you orders to check in at 223 for it. And so we stood up most of the machine gun group with the leadership I had at my last unit. And so we spent about 9 months building them up down at Pendleton, back at Pendleton. And then we took 1-1 spot for those that are in the Marine Corps. They were out of cycle, basically. They didn't have the boot. They weren't set up. We went with them. RTC won the invasion into Iraq. Did that lovely spring break trip through out of Kuwait and into Iraq. Wrapped up after 60 something days of sustained combat. Started our rotation back home after being gone for about 9 months. Got back, spent quite a bit of time instructing at a couple different places, did a couple of things before we got deactivated. But fast forward, I'm at the end of 3 more years, and it's the end of '03, beginning of '04.
Okay.
And my inactive or my active time is coming up, and I had to make a decision. So I stuck around, did a couple of drill weekends, did a whatever they called their 2-week event. Saw like my 5th or 6th boot drop, and just decided that all right, after 8 years, between all the deployments and stuff, it was time for me to transition back to into the civilian world. And I was lucky enough in '05 when I got out to get picked up by a defense company. And did that for quite a few years. And then about 10 years ago, I kind of left to move into a different field of my career. But I have to tell you, anybody listening, if you haven't used your GI Bill or your company pays for school, use them both. And if you don't know what you want to be when you grow up, it doesn't matter. All the stupid elective classes you have to take in college have to be done eventually. Get it out of the way, and then take that extra money, because it's going to go away if you don't use it.
Agreed. And that's because I got my bachelor's and started my master's with using all the GI benefits. Like I used them all. Yeah, I used it all up, and I don't regret that at all. So
No.
I totally second that. Like if you have GI benefits and you haven't kind of gone to school yet, then yeah, definitely do it and use them. Even if you don't know what you're gonna do, just get in the door.
Right. And if you can go, you might make, I was doing it full time, work was paying for it, and the GI was paying for it. I was making more money going to school than I was at the job I was going at the time. But hey, regardless if I decide what major, I'll just keep jumping around until it's time to go. When I decide a major, I've gotten half the the required classes that everybody has to take anyway out of the way.
Yep, absolutely. And you mentioned being in and after before and after 9/11, and I was the same. So I joined the Air Force right out of high school in 1999. So right before the turn of the century, I joined up and everything. And I was in Saudi before all the way up until September 9th was when I
Wow.
left. I left Saudi September 9th. Landed back in Virginia because I was stationed at Langley in Virginia and was there, and then was doing my R&R. I was actually driving back home to Buffalo, New York when 9/11 happened, and I didn't know what happened because back then you don't have real internet or anything like that. I'm listening to CDs on my way home. Like I age myself here. Like there's no Sirius or XM radio or anything like that. It's just CDs of the radio. And so I didn't find out till I got back to Buffalo, and I had to turn on and come home. So
Mm.
it was, and you talk about the being in before and after, and how the military and everything had kind of changed. So we were, as security forces, we were doing law enforcement, we were doing airbase, we were doing like base security here on stateside, and overseas we were doing just air base defense, like perimeter defense for the Air Force bases and stuff like that. Nothing super dangerous compared to what all the other branches do in those parts of the world. After 9/11 happened, they started contracting out all of our law enforcement side. We didn't sit in patrol cars anymore and do any of that stuff. It was all security, air base defense, and desert warfare training. To where we would ship out to Nellis out in Nevada, and just we were doing Mountain Village, we were doing convoy training, we were doing stuff like that for weeks at a time. and then coming back and then deploying. And so it was definitely a night and day transition. So I'm actually glad that you had mentioned that, because it's definitely like it was two worlds. It really was, and the post
Oh
9/11
yeah.
world was crazy for all branches of the military.
It was like the toy box opened up for all the infantry training, all the stuff that you cursory did at a very shoestring budget, or you half did because the budget went there. All of a sudden, you were doing that with the full package. Money was no option. I know that's blowing through all the taxpayer monies, but let me tell you, it's a huge difference between all the schools that opened up, all the additional training, the advanced training, the tactics and pieces where you can actually do it. It made a huge difference to build up to that before the invasion of Iraq. Even taking, like I told you, this reserve unit in, and trying to bring them up to what I would consider like the fleet marine standards. I'm not knocking the reserve things, but there's a big difference between 365 mindset on it and then doing it once a month. You still have the mindset, but it's not the same of day in and day out.
Right.
But yeah, the amount of schooling, the amount of advanced stuff, the amount of things that happened, it was just like joining a completely different military.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So you got out, and then how did you find IW? Like where does IW fit into that?
Sure. I've talked about this 1,000 times now, and I've talked in front of people and one-on-one, and this thing always hurts me a little bit to talk about it. But I stumbled in IW mid 2017, um, and and how I found it was, um, you know, and I wish I'd found it earlier for this reason, is my sister, who was also a Marine. She did a little bit longer than I did. In fact, we actually got to see each other in Iraq like 80 days into the invasion. Her convoy came by at the same place that we were getting refilled. So she was a combat Marine. She had a couple MLSs through her career. Long story short, in 2017, she took her life, and so I was struggling through that. And then I was looking around. We just had her funeral. We just gone through the whole piece, and she had a son, and she was in the middle of the divorce at the time, and so it was just there was so much family stuff going on and pieces going on. And additionally, I lost another brother that I had served with about the same time, a couple weeks later. They didn't know each other, just completely separate issue and suicide. And then I started looking around. I'm like, I need to go talk to somebody, but not like sit down for an hour with a therapist. I need to like just immerse myself back into some place I feel at home. And most people say, go home, see your parents, go back to where you live. And where I had felt home was, I'm losing military friends. Where I felt home was with my military buddies. And so I'd seen a few that had flown out. I'd flown out to see a few, but it's always short lived. You see them for a couple of days, and it depends if their spouse or their wives are around. It's not quite the same immersive experience. It can be short lived. And I was desperately looking for something, and I just was like, I was at a very bottom dark end with putting on a very smiley face and working through it with my family. I had job, career, kids. I had to find something. Um, and I just Googled and I said, is there just military veteran events or something generic back then? And what popped up, I mean, I could have missed it by a week, but it popped up like that weekend was the San Francisco hike. I think it was their first one or their second one that was running it, probably their second one, thinking back on how well it was put together. Um, and I don't know if it was bad. I just needed it, but there was 100+ veterans. I showed up just unknowing what I was walking into for the first
Right.
time. Um, Kind of at a low spot. I'd been out for quite a few years, and I'd kind of hit the depression thing, so I wasn't in the best shape to be doing anything at the time. And I was within 5 minutes talking to 5, 10 different vets on everything. And then next thing I know, it's 10 hours later. We've been all over the city and everywhere else. And I really felt, and it hits me like I came home. I felt like a day that I was really at my house as a kid at like 8 years old, hanging out in my room or hanging out with my friends doing something. It felt like I'd come home. That's the best way I can say it. And then I was hooked. So regardless of what's going on, I know the West Coast is hard to get to our hikes because every city is like a plane flight away, opposed to the East Coast, where it seems like there's a city every 2-hour drive away. But ever since then, it's how many I can get to. But it always feels A little bit different when you're running a hike, but definitely when you're showing up to somebody else's hike, regardless of what goes down, there's 20 people or 300 people, which is insane, or more, it does feel like I've come home. It feels like just a lunatic event at a barracks that that's where we grew up. We were kids when we showed up, regardless if you're a little bit out of high school, still in high school. It felt like coming home. And I have no other ways to put it. I feel at home.
And I am sorry for your losses. That's nothing. That's nothing that's easy to talk about. I mean, we're currently experiencing that right now in our community. Right now with Mike Wilkie. So the losses hit us very hard, and I can empathize with the feeling of being at home when we're with the Reverend Warriors. As you alluded to. So that's I'm glad you found Reverend Warriors and you found that feeling of home.
Yeah.
What made you want to be a local coordinator? How did you fall into, or how did you get voluntold into that role?
Um, I think the best way to put it was I think Collins was running the San Francisco hike. He was one of the first ones that really had it. And I know he kind of moved into the financial side for IW. And then he had a family. And so San Francisco hikes went away. And I live in San Jose, which is, 35, 55 minutes away, no traffic from San Francisco. Let's be very clear. It's not as convenient to get to as you think. Um, and there was no hike, and there was no other West Coast hike besides San Diego Oceanside that was kind of happening in 2000 and 2021. And I started bugging Mama. I'm like, hey, I'd like to run a hike, not knowing what I'm getting into. I know what it's like to show up and not go into. I said there needs to be a hike out here, regardless if I run it very long or one time or Sacramento or some other city pops it up. And so basically, I took it upon myself as I don't want to miss this, and I don't want to only be able to get to 2 or 3 hikes throughout the year. So let's bring one to where I live. That means I'm going to run it, which is fine. And I didn't want to lose somebody to lose out on that opportunity that I had by finding it. And that was really what it was. If that San Francisco hike wasn't happening, I don't know what would have happened. I'm not saying I wouldn't have found something else, but it was too on the nose, too perfect timing for me to think that this is something I should let go. If and I shouldn't selfishly assume that it's there for me. I should help to try to make it there for somebody else. So I'm okay if I have a hike that has 20 people in it, because those 20 people weren't going to go to a hike that weekend maybe if this wasn't going on.
Yep, absolutely. And you have to look at it as you're making a difference in those people's lives, regardless. So
Right. And I'm having a good time, regardless of the weird stuff that happens in the background to bring it to fruition. It's always quite entertaining afterwards. The military vets like the misery process going through. We might bitch about it, but at the end, we do joke about it, what it takes to bring something to fruition.
Well, all right. Well, then, so let's talk about that then. Like, so what's been some of the biggest struggles as a local coordinator for you in your area, and bringing your hike together to bring that to fruition? Let's talk about some of those pains. Share some stories.
Sure. I like to start off with the first one. This was quite entertaining. So, 2000, 2001, our favorite time, COVID, which unfortunately is going to be like a mile marker for everybody for the rest of their life that lived through it. Everything before COVID, post COVID, sort of like 9/11, post 9/11 for the veteran world. But COVID, screwed with everything. And
Yeah.
so I was trying to get my first hike started. You got to learn lessons for the first year. And I was running into this permit issue. And they're like this during COVID, this is 2021, late 2020, early 2021, wrapping up to my first hike. And part of this permit thing, I got into a section which says, "What is your COVID procedures?" And so I filled it out. We're going to make sure that we're not licking each other or sneezing on each other or standing with each other. And then I ran into a thing, and then there was a section that had to do with livestock, and I just ignored it completely because it wasn't applicable. Well, 2 months later, I can't figure out where my permit's stuck, and I can't figure out what's going on. They came back and said, "Hey, no, you need to, in detail, fill out every section." And I said, "I did." "You forgot this section." So I went back, opened up the document. It was the livestock. I'm like, "I don't have livestock." "Well, you need to state all those things you do if you did have it." I'm like, and so ever since 2001, the joke has been, what IW hikes don't have is alpacas. We should have alpacas. And so that was the biggest learning curve, is apparently I need to have a COVID procedure for alpacas that I didn't take into account. So the learning curve from that is fill out the whole permit if you need to get it, even the livestock one. And God damn it, if you get alpacas, call me. I'll come to your hike. I know nothing about alpacas except for I might as well have one.
Sure.
So with the joke being aside, I think the biggest thing for running a hike is, you look at the expenses and then what you pay for permits versus where that money can be spent to come back to you for to make the hike cooler or just doing different events through the year at that city or some location. And the biggest thing I've learned over the years is find the right place, find a business where you can start and end and potentially have a gathering where if you can get away from having permits to the city, you will save tons of money, you will get the stress out there. And then find out the city. If you're just going to walk on sidewalks and you're not going to block intersections and you're not going to show up at a park where you're going to start and end with parking, you can mostly get away without permits, and that shaves a huge amount of your budget off. It also potentially lets a business or several businesses in the area participate in something that they might not have otherwise done. And
Right.
and if they're participating, all of a sudden they want to do a bunch of things because they want to highlight their business, opposed to showing up to a park where you're fending off all the kids doing, playing on the playground and stuff, veterans talking like veterans, and trying to keep some semblance of what are all these half-naked people running around having a good time doing over here. It's really odd at this park. And so my biggest thing I found over the years is, hey, find a business, start, end there. Maybe they'll help sponsor it, or they'll be awesome that year. You can use their parking, you can leave your vehicles come and go. The permits piece is not going. And then when you present yourself to the city that this is going on, it's not just you rando showing up with this crazy idea showing pictures of how awesome we look, but you have business A, business B, business C going, we're awesome, we're all worth this is worth it for the business. And then all of a sudden you have a way in to talk to that, and it's taken a couple years to get that, and we've had to kind of move around San Jose to kind of find that. And we found like any big city, you have the name of the city, but there's a whole bunch of enclaves all around. Like, for instance, if I told you San Jose, it's fine, but if I told you Campbell, you would have no idea where that is. But it's
Right.
really it's really 5 minutes from downtown. Anybody on the map would just say San Jose, but it's just a little city inside of San Jose. And we find those little ones like that, and they've been more than willing to help for. But there is always that push where people want to be in that downtown area. And some cities are better at it than others. And San Jose has not been great with it, but these little alcoves like Campbell and Los Gatos, which 5 minutes away, people might stay in hotels down there anyway. So what's the difference? They have little cities,
Right.
little things, suburbs. They're all for it. And right now, the last couple of years, the city of Campbell has been awesome. That's why if you ever look at the San Jose flyers and things that go up, sometimes you'll see San Jose and you'll see it crossed out with cran, and you'll see like Los Gatos, or there you see Campbell. The joke for us is, of course, we have to tell people San Jose, but really we're having it this little city. So it's kind of a thumbs up to the city, of the little city we're in, that, hey, we acknowledge you, not just San Jose, but just for all the people so they can find us on the map, we'll keep saying San Jose.
Well, speaking of, I actually have, bam. See, just like what you did there. So, as you can see, what he is exactly what Dave's talking about is they crossed out San Jose and then they crossed off Los Gatos, and now they've got Campbell. So, just like he was saying, it's there. It is. Boom.
It's always a weird event because IW leadership keeps going, what are you doing that for? I'm like, oh, it's kind of an inside joke. And then once you explain it, well, more people involved. And so it's, eventually we're going to run out of space, but until we really run out of space, it's going to be hard to stop us.
So, how has the so all right? So you're talking about like you moved from San Jose to Los Gatos to now Campbell. How has the community in Campbell received IW and the concept of half naked adults carrying American flags and wearing patriotic gear through their sound that part of the city?
I think it's twofold. Right off the bat, we started talking to some business owners, and I live like 5 minutes from there, so I'd had rapport with some of the businesses over the years anyway. But we found really quickly there was a bunch of veteran-owned smaller businesses there, businesses that were looking for more kind of outreach pieces. That we got a chance to talk to the small business council with the mayor being there, the police chief, the fire chief, in one space. And I basically, instead of going to all their city departments, I explained, they're like, oh, no, you don't need permits or nothing. And I'll sign something saying that. So if you get to a smaller enclave of a bigger city, even if you don't have the hike there, if you get that smaller enclave involved and you meet a couple business owners, especially like I talk about starting and ending a hike at a place, it makes a huge difference to get your foot in the door. I've met the mayor of San Jose a few times, the old one and then the new one. I've met this, but I haven't gone back to downtown San Jose because I think right now the small little enclaves that were just kind of circling San Jose has been more conducive to our space. You know, A and B, less homeless, opposed to the main downtown a little bit in California. Not to
Okay.
bring in politics, and then and the city of theirs, they're smaller. The businesses are interested in keeping it, so you do get a better cohesive. And it seems like the businesses in the smaller enclaves talk to each other more, opposed to the big downtown area where they don't talk to each other. It's like you can tell the difference between an apartment complex or a street where the neighbors talk to each other or they don't. You can just tell the vibe in a street. And it seems like the smaller enclaves that I've noticed out here, they talk to each other more than the bigger cities do. And that just, maybe it's me being involved in it, me talking to it, or just trying to make sure that I don't have to pay extra in permits and things like that, that just cost money and take away from the IW experience.
Right. Now, do you guys get law enforcement support from San Jose, or is it Campbell that provides any type of support for you guys, or do you guys not have any?
OPSEC, I like to say that we have something around. Don't judge us. No, we haven't had an issue. We always have a heads up to the police department and the fire department. We've had a few of them come out that are off duty, obviously doing the hike that are veterans. But we pretty much said, hey, follow these rules. We're cool, and then we make sure that a couple days before we remind them. And we do see a lot of the law enforcement, especially at Los Gatos and Campbell, wave. They know we're out there. And we've had, the funny part is that's not that those have been completely good. The ones that have caused the issue, believe it, are park rangers that even when we had permits to go through other hikes, those are the ones that apparently the rangers don't spread the word, whereas the police department and the fire department does. So if you ask me where the biggest holdup has been over the years, it's always been a random ranger that apparently didn't show up to the morning brief or read his email or whatever. That's a bunch of random questions while you're
It's
holding the
like, I guess.
permit, knowing that you should be here. Yeah.
Right. I was gonna say, like, yeah, then no, you just have to, like, either gonna yell at you and then you just show, no, this is the piece of paper saying that we're allowed to be here. You should have been paying attention. Please leave us alone.
And if my alpaca does show up, they're going to be wearing a gas mask. So.
And you guys heard that from Dave. So if you guys can find an alpaca and have it come out to your hike, he's guaranteed to show up. So now
100%.
I think now for Connecticut, I'm going to see if I can't get hold of an alpaca, just to see if I even can. Like, I don't know. I don't know how that would work out. Like, because you've got an alpaca like with the hike element, or just like for a stop. Like, if I could say we're going to have somebody bring in an alpaca for one of our stops, and they're just going to be out there for an hour, and you can pet the alpaca and all that, and then we got to move out, because I mean, you can't have an alpaca with the hike element. You're going to
Why not?
exhaust the poor thing.
So I say this from a position of I think I know what I'm talking about. So bear with me. The
All
Marine
right.
Corps, the Marine Corps decided during all those training over those years of 8 years, I ended up at Cool Weather Survival Course up in Bridgeport, California, over theirs. And part of that survival course, there was a 3-day course on uh, uh, pack mules. They actually had donkeys there and how to use them, how to prep them.
Okay.
And for whatever reason, like we're World War One, we learned how to pack mule and use them. So we had them haul our stuff around, which is the most amazing thing as an infantry grunt with a machine gun, is you all of a sudden you had this animal to carry all your stuff. So I was on board right off the bat. And so having an alpaca move around for 7 or 8, 9 miles of a hike doesn't seem like a big stretch. So
Man, now
the
that you
challenge,
put it that way, but I mean, I guess it would. And now we're like digging into the science of alpacas all of a sudden. But like, so a lot of the alpacas, but those are all like, they're all not farm raised, but they're, they're raised on farms, on ranches and stuff like that. They may not have the capacity like a pack mule. They're raised, they're trained that way, and that's what they do. If I just go to a rescue someplace and I say, hey, I want to rent an alpaca for the day, I'm not certain that it's going to be able to stand up to the rigors that like a pack mule that's trained to do all that stuff is actually going to be able to do. You're going to end up with a dead alpaca by the end of your hike.
well, a pack of skin and fur is pretty comfortable. We could do something with that. I, I don't want to say no. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm in, as they say. I'm in.
and and I'm not trying to discredit anything you're saying, because like pack mules, absolutely. I just don't know, like, if it's the same thing if I just go pick up an alpaca at the rent a place down the street, and it's going to have the same kind of endurance and training that I'm going to like load it up with all my shit. Be like, all right, alpaca, come with us. You're come with us at the Silky hike, and you're going to have a great time. And then it's just not going to make it.
I've been at my local rental yard and I've seen trailers and backhoes and porta johns and stuff. I've never seen the alpaca section, but I'm going to look more next time I'm there.
Oh man, that's funny stuff.
I just want to be noted, I'm probably the first one that ever brought up the word alpaca in any one of these episodes. I just want that
Oh yeah,
documented.
no, this is episode 20, and yeah, 19 episodes. Nobody's mentioned alpacas before. I know that Hawaii, we did talk about alligators, and I
Mm.
wanted to wrestle an alligator on the hike because they're like, don't go in the water because there's alligators, and I was like, I'm gonna wrestle a gator. But yeah, we've never gotten into nobody's ever got talked about alpacas, so it's definitely a, a podcast first. We've popped the alpaca cherry on episode
Yes.
20.
Yes. Yes. Just because we don't know what we're talking about, but it sounds good.
It does. It sounds amazing. So, so all right. So I'm gonna pull up your poster again. Talk
Sure.
about your hike. When is your hike? And what tidbits can you give about your hike this year without giving everything away? Just give us a trailer.
Sure. Do I use my theatrical voice? The hike is on. No, I can't do that. Never mind. Just kidding. So that is April 12th. So it's not this Saturday, the following Saturday coming up, or whenever this airs, that April 12th. We're in San Jose, California, but in reality, we're in Campbell. If you don't know where it is, don't worry. You can find a map. We're starting off at a brewery. It's not going to be open. We're going to use their seating. We will end the hike there. Um, but we have a good little setup. We have a nice place to check people in. We got a safe place to park the vehicles. We have a good rounding area to give the pre-hike kickoff. Talk about what IW is. Talk about what we're not, what we're going to do today. And for those that were there last year, they might remember. And I'll just leave this out, and I'll give you no more context. Is think blue apes. Okay. I'm just going to push it aside like I didn't say the word and move on. Additionally, if you've seen me at other hikes or doing other things, I might be somebody that walks around with rubber chickens. And everybody always asks why rubber chickens. My thing is, unfortunately, through life, I started making enough money where it can randomly go onto Amazon and just buy a box of a few hundred rubber chickens. Uh, Not because I need them, because I can.
Right.
And so I have kind of picked up the rubber chicken persona for the hike because let's face it, there's nothing else really happening in San Jose anyway. So you might as well just take it to left field. And
Oh, absolutely.
and so we've had that. We have some pretty, I don't have any with me because I'm at work, but some really good IW chicken patches, completely random, I know. And then everybody's getting rubber chickens and we're rocking it out. We got a good hike route. We're complete. Anybody wants to complain, whatever. Our elevation change for the whole hike is 105 feet. So anybody that falls out is gonna have to explain it to me, or they didn't bring an alpaca the ride. It can go either way.
Right. Or yeah, if you yeah you can't fall out, and if you do, then just ride your alpaca.
100%. I don't know how this all ties together, but I'm hoping it works.
It's gonna be totally fine. I promise. It's no big deal. But so like the rubber chickens, like I know we use those up here as well. Like
Mhm.
the Connecticut hike, we have rubber chickens, and I know we've brought them up to the Worcester hike and stuff like that. So the rubber chickens thing is we're familiar with that, and that's actually can get pretty entertaining with some of the photos and stuff. So
Yep. Everybody's got them in their pack. I'm usually walking around with a full rucksack stuffed full of rubber chickens at this hike or not. So you get a lot of um, uh, people honking the chickens going on, throwing them out here and there. It's entertaining. A couple of stops we got are very all local small businesses. The night before the meet and greet is at a location that's owned by a Marine. We're stopping there for lunch the next day. It's owned by a Marine. Some of the other spots have been very friendly for we're stopping for a couple of the hike spots have been very friendly for us over the years, and we're going to go back and reward them for their participation and stuff. So it should be a good, comfortable hike. If the weather holds in the low 70s, it should be amazing. Um, yeah, just get around kind of the east side of San Jose and see what's going on.
very very cool. Well, I can't wait to see photos because now I wanna know like about the blue apes. I know we're glossing over it. I'm not gonna mention it again, but I can't wait to I want to see photos of what you're talking about. So I'm gonna have to wait and see pictures. But if you guys who are watching the episode and you guys have not registered yet, do so. One and two, then you get to go hang out with blue apes apparently. So
With rubber chickens.
with rubber chickens
Yeah,
and maybe alpacas. We don't know.
maybe. You never know.
You never know.
I do know. I can't find any, but if I did, they will be there.
I think that's going to be the mission for the rest of 2025. Let's find the first hike that can actually have an alpaca on their hike.
Oh, dude, I'm there.
I'm, we might have to talk with you and Nate about that at conference and make sure that that's PC because we don't want we don't want all of a sudden now we're going into animal cruelty laws and all that nonsense and
As long as you apparently fill out the permit that has it, what could go wrong?
right, yeah. I mean, if they ask about what livestock do you have and what would you do, all right, well now I've got an alpaca, and if it gets COVID, I guess we just socially distance from it. I don't know. Like,
They have to make gas masks for alpacas, right? I mean, you could find
I,
anything on Amazon. Why can't you find that?
right, I got nothing. I mean, they would have to. Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm adding to society here, but I'll go with this. Let's keep going.
We're good with it. But so, all right. So now I want to ask though. So we've talked about alpacas. We've talked about rubber chickens. We've talked about your hike. Um, we talked about you being in LC and how you found IW. But now I want to know about your why. What does IW mean to you, and what is your why?
I think IW, and I keep bringing this home. IW to me means a place where any veteran from any age group, of any service branch, any type of service, deployed or non-deployed, um, needs a place where they feel comfortable to be themselves. And one thing IW does is it has a very interesting slice of veterans that come in and come out of the organization, that are around there. And I think it's I want it to be an open, friendly, say anything place because no one's judging it. And if you say something completely off bounds, you're within a group that's never going to leave that information. Where if you say it the wrong, the PC thing in the wrong place outside in the normal world of whatever it is, people will not like you or give you a hard time. Or I've heard
Yeah.
some pretty ridiculous stuff, and those are people. What's really good humor is past that line because it's edgy. We know it's not true, and the fact that people can just vent openly, do it. Like I said, it's like being at home with your brothers and sisters where just the lunacy would happen, the weirdness would happen, and you get out of it. So to me, every IW thing I can get to or go, it just feels like I'm walking at home. I could walk into an IW event. I've done it many times when I've occasionally tried to get to as far away from my hike as possible so I can just meet a completely different set of people, see a different city, see a different thing. It's I don't have to know anybody. It's the same way I feel like I can talk to a Marine I've never met before, just randomly at the airport or walking through. I can just start talking to a service member and we just pick up like we've known each other for years, hence coming
Yeah.
home. And you may have to introduce yourself, cover stuff, and you can have whatever quirks I have, they can have whatever quirks they have, and it's not an issue. Where in the civilian world, you might talk to somebody and talk, but you don't really get much past the normal pleasantries on an elevator going up and down about the weather and stuff like that. Nope, we can go completely left field and basically everybody just riffs with it or goes with it or expands the conversation, or you get to know somebody at a level that you could never get anywhere else.
Yep. No, that makes sense.
Yep.
So I guess that kind of ties into the last question that I really wanted to ask you is if you're in San Jose, you're in Campbell, wherever you're at, you just happen to be in a place and you come across somebody, a veteran who you actually convinced to self-identify, and um they tell you that they have either not heard of IW or they have heard of IW, but they haven't come out to any events. What's your how do you convince them, or what do you say to them to get them to come out to one of your events, or the Silkies hike?
The analogy I use, and I kind of use it either with civilian and then the military the same way when I'm explaining. And then I usually start off with, "Hey, all the buddies you serve with, do they live anywhere near here where you live? No. Don't you wish you could hang out with them like this weekend or next weekend? Fly out there, see them. Oh, dude, I'd love it. I miss them. I wish I got right. Hey, how about you go hang out with a bunch of other ones, basically a different name, same attitude, in like 2 weeks or here. I mean, it's the same thing. It's the same way I say is, hey, for the civilian world, did you go to college? Yes. Did you have really good people hanging out your dorms or whatever, your party, whatever? And then all of a sudden you got out and, finish your college and they live somewhere else. You live here. How often do you see them? Maybe once a year, twice a year, you talk occasionally. Wouldn't you love to just be around bullshitting like nothing happened? Yeah, it's the same thing here. I miss the lunacy of the barracks, the downtimes, the vet walking. That's why the hike is really good, because you're doing a physical event, hard or not hard. And if it's the hike short, throw 50 pounds in your pack. Add some miserable level. That way you can joke about it the whole time. It's the same thing. Go out and come back into that. This is a chance to come back and be with that niche that you had before, regardless if you know them. And believe it or not, while you're doing that, you've gotten that other person you could call in the middle of the night. That's local potentially, or it's an additional person that you can add to that space and somebody else you start talking to. There's a huge swath of just veterans where I have to stop and go, did I serve with you, or we've basically been together at all these IW hikes? I can't tell the difference anymore. And that to me is the key. That's the key. It's just it's really the networking for networking. Some friends are better for career time. Some are just good for just endless laughs. Some are good for to talk to you about it, and some are just all of those things. It's like coming home. If you have multiple brothers and sisters, everybody's different. Some you open up more with the others. Some won't put up with it. Some will put up with it. It's the same thing. You can find all of that at IW, but at the end of the day, it's a pretty good niche family. Do some of us get a little crazy? 100%. But it's the same way. It's presenting that out. And by doing all that, you potentially cure the mission is to prevent veteran suicide. And when I find that kid, in fact, this happened like 2 weeks ago, at a place I was and I started talking about this. And this guy lives like 2 blocks from the hike starting and ending, and he has nothing to do on that Saturday, and he's really bored. Well, guess what he's doing? He's going to the hike. I followed
Yeah.
up with another Marine, and he was like, "This is amazing." I said, and he goes, "What do I expect? You have your short shorts left? I have something to shoot. Perfect. Show up like that. We'll take care of the rest." You know. And if you
Yeah.
don't like it, you don't like it. I guarantee you, you'll change your mind after an hour or less.
Right. Oh, and it's a beautiful thing you said too, is that when you talk to somebody like, where are your battle buddies? Are they here? Or are they not? And they're not here. Well, you want to meet people that are just like your battle buddies and hang out. And no, that's perfect. That's awesome. And it's deeper than you think, because it gets them thinking about their connections that they have with their battle buddies, and how much they miss that, and how they can create new battle buddies when they come out to our events, and then rekindle that camaraderie that they've lost. That's good. I like that.
And believe it or not, the old joke where you never introduce one group of friends to another group of friends. And I forget what comedian I'm stealing this from, but he goes, "Okay," and you tell one group, "Okay, this group thinks I'm British, so don't worry about it." But it's this, but where this is not an issue, I can bring this group of veteran buddies with this other group of veteran buddies together. Within 5 minutes, we're out like smashing rocks and lighting fires and having a great time. I'm not saying we do that at IW hikes, but everybody blends in very quick. So this is a good group of either veterans and the ones coming together. So all the different groups are invited. Cliques happen a little bit, but not as much as you think. You can easily go in and out of any clique that develops at IW, and it's not mutually exclusive. Where if you go in the civilian world, you would have that going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you're talking about like sticks and all that stuff, and I'm immediately thinking of apes together strong. Like,
Yeah, there we go.
oh man, well, that's good stuff. Um, I I think that about wraps it up. Um, I honestly I can't wait to see photos from your silky site, especially like it talk we can't talk about anymore, but blue apes and alpacas. I hope to see photos of all those things. And I hope it's a huge success and everything that you and your leadership team want it to be.
I appreciate it. I think we're good. All the things are dialed in. The stops are done. The businesses are looking forward to this. We're hoping the weather hangs out in the 70s. And if not, we'll go through a shared misery experience, but have a great time and build even stronger bonds. So we're ready.
Outstanding. All right. Well, next up, we've got local coordinator Chris Denawi from IW Jacksonville, North Carolina. Stay tuned. Dave Boston, IW San Jose, or IW Campbell. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. I hope, like I said, I hope that everything goes well with your hike, and it was a pleasure having you on the show tonight.
Thank you very much, Eric. Until we talk again. Thank you.
Until we talk again, I'll see you in a little bit.
Sounds good.